He had also bragged about how close the relationship between his superior, Inspector Sharp, and Chief Inspector Tannock was. "Sir," Poole asked as they passed through Bexford's main town square, the lights shining off the cobbles that covered its centre, "what's the deal with Chief Inspector Tannock?" Brock looked curiously sideways at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've barely ever even seen the man. He doesn't ever seem to be in the office." Brock sighed and pulled a battered bag of boiled sweets from his jacket pocket and offered the bag to Poole, who shook his head. "Have you ever seen those old war films where the generals sit on top of the hill drinking tea while the men are down at the bottom, running into the gunfire and generally having a terrible time of it?" Brock said, popping a sweet into his mouth before returning the packet. "Yes," Poole answered, confused. "Chief Inspector Tannock is one of those generals on the hill, and we're all down at the bottom getting shot at." "Oh, right, sir." "But not for long," Brock added. "He's retiring soon. It's going to be a shock to old Sharp, I can tell you." "Why's that, sir?" "Well, him and Tannock go way back, old army buddies. I think they're what people refer to as part of the old boys' club. And when someone new comes in, I think Sharp is in for a rude awakening." "Right, thanks, sir," Poole said, smiling. He was suddenly feeling much better about things. They entered a side street, and after a few 100 metres the new theatre loomed. Its golden-coloured stones shone in the spotlights that surrounded it. "Here we are then, Poole," Brock said, pushing at the large door and stepping inside. The foyer was empty. They quickly crossed it, heading towards a bored-looking teenage girl who stood behind a podium. "You're late," she said, sighing as Brock handed her the tickets. "But they haven't started yet." The inspector grunted and marched on through the double doors, which opened with a soft swoosh. The lights were darkening as they stepped through into the theatre, and music was beginning to pulse around the now hushed space. They took 2 seats in the last row, the only area where seats were still available, and settled down to watch the show. The screen at the back of the stage lit up with the intro sequence to the show. The theme music kicked in, causing the crowd to whoop and cheer. "Bloody hell," Brock muttered. Poole turned to him, expecting to see the usual gruff expression, but instead something else played across his expressive face. Poole was sure he was mistaken, but it looked as though there was a flicker of enjoyment there. A man bounced onto the stage, followed by a group of 4 people who all waved as the crowd applauded and whooped at an even greater volume. The man leading the group wore a bright blue suit with a crisp white shirt, its oversized collar jutting up, framing his stubble jaw. Poole recognized him instantly as Jarvis Alvarado, star of the show and heartthrob of the nation. The rest of the number he recognized as fellow cast members. They took up positions on metal stools that had been whisked onto the stage by scurrying, black-clothed figures. Alvarado stood in front of them, a microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, arms wide, his voice reverberating through the large speakers that hung from the walls. "It is so good to see you all here tonight," he continued, "for what I'm sure is going to be the beginning of something very special." The crowd applauded as he flashed a set of bright white and perfect teeth that seemed to glow against his olive skin. The theme tune was still blaring from the speakers, its deep bass and heavy guitars sounding more appropriate for Wembley Stadium than the new theatre at Bexford. "And for you lovely people here tonight," he continued, "we have something very special indeed." He moved to the side of the stage and gestured to the heavens, both arms stretched out before him. There was a movement from above the stage, and the crowd gasped, as an exact replica of the office the foul murder team used on the show was lowered towards the stage floor behind the arranged cast. Jarvis waved his arms to indicate he wanted more cheers from the crowd, and they responded with enthusiasm. "Tonight we will perform the opening scene from the first episode live, just for you." The crowd cheered again, but the sound changed to a shocked intake of breath.